Hello and welcome back to another episode of White Album 2. We are currently playing through the closing chapter doing Mari-san's Route. A terrible, terrible episode it was last time. We're basically on a date with Setsuna for her birthday at her family home, and we're leaving Mari-san hanging after agreeing to meet her at 8, which is 2 hours after she landed in Japan to come see us. So that's great. And now Setsuna's crying and just everything is a mess. We're gonna end up with no one at this rate. That's why I can delude myself into thinking that the Setsuna I'm seeing today is not her real self. And she's merely a sorrowful illusion I'm seeing under the haze of alcohol.
Mari-san. 何？編集長から席まで来るようにって。そう。もう帰るから今すぐにって。部下の都合も考えずにさっさと帰る上司ってどうなのかしらね。12時ですよ、今。
Oof.
そう。もうそんな時間なんだ。
Can you imagine? What a terrible man. It's like the end of introductory chapter all over again.
そっか。もう日が変わるのか。そっか。そっか。マリさん、すぐ行くから安心して。いろいろと嫌な思いさせて悪かったわね。いえ、それはいいんですけど、もしかして。マリさん、あの話断るつもりだったとか。まさか。本当にですか？ずっと希望を出し続けてたのは私の方だし。それは確かにそうなんですけど、でも今のマリさん。そうだよ。何を迷ってたんだ私は。ごめんなさいね、こんな時間まで引き止めてしまって。
いえ、こちらこそ夜分遅くまで失礼しました。
はしゃぎすぎなんだよ姉ちゃん。彼氏放置で酔いつぶれて寝ちまうなんて。
そんなことないよ。さっきまでずっと話をしてた。ただ試験終わったばかりで疲れてたんじゃないかな。
Tens of minutes passed before Setsuna had finally shut her eyes that were red from crying, and she finally fell into a tranquil sleep. And it was then that I finally let go of Setsuna's hand before leaving her room and the Ogiso residence. After all, Setsuna's hand was tightly holding onto mine up until her strength slacked from falling asleep. I couldn't bring myself to let her go up until she fell asleep and no longer sought my hand.
それと、これ、おりんご。一人暮らしだとビタミン足りなくなるからね。
ありがたくいただきます。
If I recall correctly, these are from their relatives in Aomori. Aomori is very famous for apples, best apples in Japan. Setsuna said something similar 3 years ago. She said something along the lines of me having to take enough vitamins since I lived alone. I couldn't help but let out a grin upon realizing that she really took after her mother.
それじゃあ失礼します。おやすみなさい。
またね、北原さん。今度は俺の合格祝いに呼ぶからさ。
来年の刹那の誕生日より早ければいいんだけどね。
そういう親の無神経な態度が子供のやる気をそぐって分かってる。もし浪人したら母さんの責任重大だぞ。
Aww.
推薦取れなかったのはあんたの責任重大だけどね。
Right when I felt like smiling and crying at the same time, I hurriedly turned around and went on my way. stars seemed to be shining brighter than usual upon the sky of the quiet neighborhood, perhaps due to the cold freezing everything in place. It's snowing, just like it did back then, 3 years ago. My wavering heart causes my feet to slip and stumble forward. The date's already changed. The last train is also going to depart very soon. But there's still several hours left before Mari-san's departure. I've failed to meet her at the time I promised to meet her, by several hours at that. But there's still time for us to meet up with one another right now. I believe that there's still time for Mari-san to forgive me for what happened today, even if I have to apologize, drop to my knees, and plead to her that I'm willing to do anything she wants to compensate for it. Now, this is a huge error in judgment because he's just saying, oh, well, she'll probably forgive me. I'll have to beg, I'll do anything, I just need her to forgive me. He doesn't even care that he's hurt her feelings. Not once does he mention here, like, I feel so bad, or I'm such a bad person. She's hurt, and that's just so, you know, he doesn't care about that. He just cares about being forgiven. Drives me up a wall. How do I even talk to her about this? How do I explain that I couldn't bring myself to end things with Setsuna? In the end, I didn't make any progress whatsoever. No, you just went backwards. I was unable to tell her the important thing I needed to tell her. I was unable to enact the conclusion that I'd decided on. All I know is that Setsuna knows exactly what I want to tell her. And I know that she doesn't want the conclusion I've decided on to become a reality. And with the way I am now, I just can't march up to Mari-san with full confidence and tell her that I'm a man who's already made up his mind about everything. Mari-san. Mari-san has tried to contact me so many times, almost as if she was desperate. But she's not answering right now, no matter how many times I've called her. Gee, I wonder why. Haruki's gotten too many second chances. He's too used to Setsuna forgiving him for every little thing. Even though I pressed the apartment's number and tried to use the intercom, I didn't get the response I'd hoped for. The automatic door at the entrance was shut tightly, denying me entry into the building. In a rare turn of events, the editing department was also empty. Because of that, there's no one who could tell me if Mari-san ended up coming to the department or where she was right now. She probably went back to the editing department at least once, though, since there are traces of her being there. Her cabinet was slightly dented. It's as if someone kicked it with a high heel. The dent wasn't there before she went on her trip. Yeah. I pressed the button for the second, third, fourth, and fifth time. But no matter how many times I pressed the button of Mari-san's apartment number, the irritated voice I longed for didn't come through the speaker. Has she already returned to the airport? Or perhaps she's rented a hotel room nearby to prepare for her departure tomorrow? Come on, nothing's going to change if I'm only going to hesitate. I'm hesitant to use this key, given that I've not received Mari-san's permission to do so, but I have to check if there's someone inside her apartment. No, I don't need to justify my actions with a sense of duty or whatnot. I have to find Mari-san. I have to meet up with her today. If I don't, it might be too late for me. I can't really explain exactly what it is, but I have a very ominous feeling.
Mari-san.
The door chain is not locked.
Mari-san, いないんですか?
And I discover that there's no light on in the apartment. As I thought, she's not here either. Whew. The moment I turn on the lights, I am at a loss for words at the spectacle before me. What a mess. What a sad mess. I was expecting to see her apartment tidied up, given that I thoroughly cleaned it when we were preparing for her trip together 2 weeks ago. But that's not what I'm seeing right now. Isn't almost everything within her apartment strewn across the floor right now? Her clothes, her underwear, her books, and other accessories. More importantly, even the bookshelves, cupboards, and dressers that were supposed to be keeping those things are also on the floor. And they've been scattered, shattered, damaged, and knocked over. There's no room for me to even stand on the floor. It's going to be very dangerous to even walk about the area at this rate.
Mari-san. Mari-san!
As I somehow managed to recover my rationale after my mind went blank, upon witnessing this devastation, a grave thought comes to my mind. Was this a burglary? Did someone infiltrate Mari-san's apartment during the long period she was absent? What if Mari-san returned home without knowing anything and saw what happened?
Mari-san! Mari-san!
Fortunately, however, the worst possible scenario that I'd imagined is immediately proven wrong.
Mari-san.
In the corner of the apartment, the moment I find her hugging her knees under the kitchen counter, looking smaller than she usually does. The moment I examine her and detect no signs of injury on her body or her clothes.
Mari-san, これは一体?
And the moment I turned on the lights, she was supposed to know that I'd arrived. Even so, Mari-san seemingly maintained her current position without responding to my arrival.
立てますか?
I carefully avoid the shattered pieces of glass and ceramic scattered about the floor as I approach Mari-san, extending a hand to her as she remains slumped over on the floor. Man, it's so sad. Even so, Mari-san doesn't seem to be able to hear me, as expected. In other words, perhaps her mind went blank just like mine did the moment she discovered the state of her apartment? Oh, sweet summer child. Or perhaps it wasn't someone else who had reduced her apartment to that state, but Mari-san herself?
どうしたんですかこれ?
どうして来なかったんだよ、北原。8時には会えるって言ったのに。今まで何してたんだよ。
よかった。
何がよかっただ。これのどこがよかったんだ。
マリさんが無事で。
Her words and the way she said them are all I need to confirm that she was indeed the one who devastated her own apartment. Oh, well, yokata. Thank goodness for that. What an idiot.
無事？無事だって？今さらのこのこやってきて何言ってるんだお前は。
すいません。
質問に対する答えがまだだ。今までどこで何してた？私をほったらかしにして、電話も全部無視して。
What is the meaning of this? I was the first to ask a question, though she instead replied to me with a question of her own.
会社の金じゃないんだぞ。自費で帰ってきたんだぞ。今度は10万どころの騒ぎじゃなかったんだぞ。
That is about $1,000.
はい。
お前は私にいくら貢がせれば気が済むんだよ。
She had to spend money on consulting a doctor and on the prescriptions to start with, as well for personal cosmetics. And now she had to pay for traveling back here. It's true that Mari-san has already put an unusual amount of money on her tab for my sake. I mean, yes, some of it was like not for Haruki. Like cosmetics, like that's not his bad. This one kind of is bad. It was her decision in the first place, but for him to outright ignore her like this?
どうしてお前は私をそんなに軽く扱うんだ。私がもうお前だけのものだとでも思ってるのか。
そんなこと思ってません。思えるわけがないです。
なら答えろ。私との約束よりも大切な用事って一体何なんだよ。
誕生日でした。
Yikes.
え？
I can no longer continue hiding the truth behind my self-righteous excuse of keeping it from her until I've settled things. You know, I do want to say though, the fact that Mari-san has destroyed her own apartment is a little bit excessive. Like, yes, Haruki broke a promise with her, but also, what if it was an emergency? Like, what if something had happened to Haruki? Like, what if he got hit by a car or something? Like, jumping to this extreme after someone's late a few hours to your meeting is a little bit crazy. And even finding out, honestly, someone cheated on you after dating you for like 2 months, I think it's been. That's crazy. That's not normal behavior. This is very excessive.
3年前のバンドのボーカルのトーマじゃない、もう一人の女の子の。
I can no longer put off telling her the truth, given that Mari-san's already endured so much from me.
俺にとってマリさんと同じくらい大切な人の。
That's not okay to say. The way Haruki says things sometimes are awful. Regardless of what result may come from me doing this. I hold nothing back as I divulge everything that I haven't told her up until now. I tell her about that Christmas evening, about the very night I made that horrible mistake, and about the night that became the start of things for us. Words that I couldn't tell her back then, despite having tried many times to say them out loud, are now flowing out from my lips. I spoke about the first person I dragged into my unit, the girl who used to be known as Miss Hojo High back in high school. Man, can you imagine being a working woman and then you start dating some like much younger kid, because Haruki acts like a kid a lot. You start dating the kid and he was like, well, in high school we had all this drama. Like, she's a career woman. It just seems so silly. I don't know. They're both so dumb. I spoke about how I came to get along with this girl who, despite her popularity and how much attention she attracted, was unbelievably friendly. I spoke about the night after our performance during the school festival, and I told her that it was the girl who I ended up confirming our mutual feelings for one another with, rather than Kazusa. I spoke about how, when I went for that overnight trip, it wasn't just Kazusa who was with me, but that other girl as well. And I told her that the people around me knew that I was in a relationship with that girl back then, rather than with Kazusa. I spoke about how I ended up betraying her with Kazusa, how we've been keeping in so much since then, and how we've only been dragging out our situation. And then came that Christmas evening. I explained how I came over to see Mari-san immediately after I left her. I explained how I'd fallen for Mari-san because the pain of not being able to connect with her was too much to bear. In other words, I explained how my act of seeking out Mari-san was an attempt to alleviate the wounds and pain I shared with that girl. I did so because she was there. I did so because I loved her. And that's why I came to fall in love with Mari-san. It's all well and good if you had told her this from the beginning. The moment I finished telling her everything, Mari-san began to laugh. But her smile isn't her usual, reliable smile that I longed to see from the bottom of my heart. It's not the same satisfied smile she lets out whenever we tease one another and inevitably embrace one another whenever we're in bed together either. It only took a moment before her smile disappeared without a trace.
彼女とギクシャクしてたから。元気づけてもらいたくて私を口説いたって。
最初のきっかけはそうだったかもしれませんけど、
彼女がさせてくれないからちょっと強引に行けばコロッと引っかかりそうな男いなそうな年上女にちょっかいかけてみたって。
Haruki did not explain that very well. Haruki is so bad at explaining things because Haruki, and I've mentioned this before, but he is in love with being sad. He is so used to punishing himself for what happened 3 years ago that he just feels most comfortable in his sorrow, and so every situation he explains sounds so bad.
Mari-san.
She can easily strike down. That's no longer the case as things are now, as an attempt to explain myself. She can strike it down just as easily as whenever she plays the usual role of my strict superior, who can refuse any reason I come up with to explain why I've failed to meet a deadline.
そんな心にもない愛の言葉に私が翻弄されるのをずっと笑いをこらえて眺めてたって。
Man.
そんなこと俺は。やっ
ぱり私は代用品なんじゃないか。
The glass she threw flew right by me and smashed into the wall behind me, shattering into pieces with a loud sound.
トーマカズさんに似てるって言ったのも、似てるけどそんなこと関係ないって抱きしめたのも。
The white wall is now stained with the red of the wine. Mari-san has been drinking.
みんな本命の彼女を隠すためのカモフラージュだったんだな。
Why does she have the misunderstanding that Setsuna was his girlfriend? They have not spoken in over 2 years. They went on a single date on Christmas, which failed. And Haruki did not explain that in a... Oh my god.
違います。違うんです。最後まで話を聞いて、マリさん。
聞く耳なんか持つか。
Someone's gonna call the cops. I'm surprised the cops haven't already come. Look at this mess. This time, even the wine bottle was shattered. The red stain on the wall is spreading even wider, to the point where it can no longer be wiped away to return the wall to its original state. The sweet scent of alcohol wafts around the room from the spilled wine as shattered glass is scattered across the floor.
なんてことだ。こんな面白いサーカスは初めてだ。
マリさん。
I expected her to be angry.
ここまで笑わせてくれるピエロなんか見たことない。
落ち着いて、お願いだから。俺、本当にあなたのこと。
This is what he wanted, right? This is what he wanted when he betrayed Setsuna. He wanted her to be mad. Well, here's someone being mad. Here's what it really should have been.
ただ一つの問題は、ピエロ本人が全然笑えないことだがな。
Yikes. But I never could have imagined just how furious she'd be.
コケにされたのは生まれて初めてだ。
違います。
何が違うって言うんだ。人のこと慰み者にしておいて。
Mari-san's really flared up right now, and her icy attitude reminds me of the weight of my sin once more. A pain even more excruciating than what I felt just a few hours ago pierces through my heart again.
もうやめてください、マリさん。これ以上やると部屋も物もあなたも傷つくから。
But I just can't continue to allow myself to get crushed under that pain. It's true that my feelings were in disorder. No, they had come to a complete stop. There was no place for my heart to go, so I chose to tightly cling on to the closest act of kindness and forced myself to look their way. I never would have expected her to reply to my overbearing desire for her with boundless kindness, and I ended up passing time without moving forward or backward. I've been staying still in a pleasant spot.
傷つけるのは俺だけにしてください。今まで一緒に暮らしてきたものにまで当たらないで。
But right now, and without a doubt, that's about to come to an end. If we simply confront each other head on with our passion and give each other time and talk things out, I'm sure we'll be able to find an opening for us to settle things. Wow, Haruki has a really bright outlook on this terrible situation. That's why, right now...
ああ、いいんだよ。
マリさん。
Mari-san slowly stood up, as if to blow a gust of fresh air to bequeath my flustered self.
もういらないから。持っていかないから。
持って。
The way her voice changed to a dry, sarcastic tone after being so furious up until a short moment ago sent an ominous chill down my spine.
本当にタイミング良かったよ、北原。
The way she's spewing out words that I just don't understand with that dry tone of hers stirs up an unfamiliar feeling of unease within me.
私もさ、本当は少しだけ両親が咎めてたんだ。お前はそれを知ってて、私の罪の意識を軽くしてくれようとしたんだな。
No, this feeling isn't familiar.
いやー、本当によく気のつくやつだ。きっと上司の教育が良かったんだな。
何を言ってるんです？
I know this feeling. I just know I've felt it before. But when did I get this feeling? If I recall correctly, it was when...
知ってたんだろ？私がアメリカ支局に移動するって。
Oh boy.
だから後腐れないように何もかもぶち壊してくれたんだろ？気を使わせて悪かったな。
Whew. What a night. 3 years ago, at that time...
たった半日だけ帰国してくるなんて相変わらず世話しないな、風岡。
お気に入りのコートを取りに来ました。向こうは寒いので。
部屋は見つかったか？
いえ、これから探します。
そうか。メールの件、正気じゃないよな。
本気じゃないよなと聞いてほしかったんですけど。
俺は今まで風岡には自由にやらせてきたつもりだ。
ありがとうございます。おっしゃる通り、のびのびやらせてもらってます。
海洋グラフもほぼ全権を与えてるし、お前がやりやすいように若手だけでチームを組ませた。フォローはベテランのフリーランスに任せてな。
はい。
お前が他の部の仕事に手を出しても黙認してきた。クレームも全部潰してきた。
分かっています。私が好き勝手に働けるのも編集長のおかげです。
今回の出向もお前の希望を最大限叶えた形のものだと思ってたんだがな。風岡、俺はな、自分の後継はお前しかいないと思ってる。まだまだ先の話だが。
ありがとうございます。
今回手放すのだって不自由の決断だった。けれどお前が何年も前から希望してたから。
え
え。もし断るということになれば、今回ばかりはさすがにかばいきれないぞ。
分かってます。
今後俺の裁量で風岡にわがままをさせられなくなる。グラフからは外されるかもしれない。
当然だと思います。
まあお前のことだから、いずれは実力で這い上がっていくだろうが、それでも今以上のスピードで上がっていくことは難しい。
それも分かってます。
それでもいいんだな。悪いがそんなに考える時間はない。何しろもしお前が断るとなったら、至急代わりの要員を手配しないと。
編集長、
ん？
覚悟しておいてくださいね。
何をだ？
今度私が日本に帰ってきたら、その椅子に座ることになりますから。
That's very direct, very forward, very confident though. That's Mari-san. And with that, we will end. Thank you so much for being here with me on that episode of White Album 2, and I'll be back with more in the future. Until then, I hope you take care. See you.